It is the 11 Dubcast. I am Johnny, and he is George. And we've got so many things to talk about this week. We've got hockey, both college and professional hockey, believe it or not. Obviously, men's basketball is still playing games, so we're still going to talk about them. And then, of course, we're going to kind of lead here with the NFL Combine and how your favorite Buckeyes performed or didn't perform because they realized that
Yeah,
the best way to do this.
that's the new cool thing.
That's right.
Everybody's Marvin Harrison Jr. now. It's like the best combine performance is the one that you don't actually
Exactly.
have.
Yeah,
You
the
just go
best.
to pro day where they can rig all the 40 and
That's
laser
right.
times and look better than maybe perhaps you actually are. And
Right.
that's all the info the teams get before the draft.
The
So.
best combine performance is the hypothetical one that exists in the minds of scouts based on film that they watched 4 months ago. That's the one that you want. If you're a
It
presumed
would have
first
been for
round
Will
pick,
Howard, unfortunately.
well, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And maybe that should have, maybe he should have just said, you know what, college football playoff. That's the last film you will ever see of me. Um, we can get into that a little bit. The NFL Combine is an interesting kind of beast because I do think it's evolved a lot over the years. It's something that I used to pay a lot of attention to. For whatever reason, like I'm not a huge NFL fan, like in part because I'm a Bengals fan, and that kind of necessitates a certain clinical detachment from the sport at that level.
What do you
But
call yourself, a Bengals appreciator?
well,
Whenever
I'm a
this gets
well
brought up,
wisher, and that I don't
well,
wish them
that's what
any.
a well
Yeah, yeah.
wisher is the term.
I'm a well wisher, and that I don't wish them any specific harm.
I
And
defer to the Bengals.
Yeah,
when I'm put in
exactly.
this
Yes.
position.
I grew up in the what we call the Bruce Coslet era, and if you don't know who that is, that's the point. So anyway, I really enjoyed watching the combine when I was younger because, as an Ohio State fan, I wanted to see these players that I had rooted for a very long time. 4 years, I guess, in my estimation as a young person. Succeed in the NFL. I wanted to see what they were going to do. I wanted to see how they performed against other guys at that same level. And I feel like as the years have gone on, I've got less and less invested in it as it's, kind of, I guess, evolved over time. And as you mentioned when we just started, there's much less of an incentive for these guys to come out and show out at this combine with the rise of these, pro days at the friendly confines of their own backyard. So I don't know, man. I guess I want to, before we get into someone kind of talking about how Ohio State athletes did, do you feel the same way, or do you get invested in the pro day
I
at
mean,
all, or
I don't
combine?
get invested, but I don't necessarily agree that there's any less general intrigue or that there's less of an incentive for a player to go to it now. Maybe that's more true for Ohio State talents that feel more secure in their draft stock and aren't really looking to improve it. But I mean, I think I made this point when we were talking about the combine on last year's show. Like, if you're a player like a DK Metcalf, where you have the opportunity to like really put your athleticism on display in a way that maybe people weren't as prone to when you were in college, when you've got all the eyeballs actually watching, you're a physical specimen moving at a very, very alarming rate of speed, you suddenly
Uh-huh.
dramatically change the conversation around your draft stock and put it in a much more positive light than you would get to otherwise.
So if you're
A
John
similar thing
Ross,
happened with Chris Olave.
yeah,
I don't know if it was the same combine, but it was, right around the same. I don't think it was the same combine, but it was right around the same time Olave came out of school, and I accidentally ran like a sub 4.340 that eventually got corrected, but people were still alarmed, assuming that Garrett Wilson was going to be the speedster between the two of them.
right.
And it turned out that the gap was actually much closer than many people expected. And then you had Olave already having the rep of being an NFL ready route runner on top of it. And that ended up creating a situation where he and Wilson and Jameson Williams all end up going back to back to back in the same draft. And I don't think that that happens if Olave doesn't show out at the combine in the way that he did. So there's still the opportunity to dramatically improve the conversation around your stock and boost it a little bit more than you would get otherwise. You also run the risk of maybe underperforming in the drill. And if you have one off day, just because maybe, you just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, for whatever reason, even if you've done all this preparation just to show out at the combine itself, you might be making less money from your draft position than you would otherwise. So a lot of the players have to assess whether the risk is good for them or not. I think for a lot of Ohio State players it isn't, but that doesn't mean that it's totally abandoned them. You can still dramatically help yourself. I think that's exactly what Judkins did.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the player, because I agree with you. Yeah, Judkins and Henderson both having blazing 40 times, which I don't think.
People expected that from Henderson.
Yeah, exactly. People expected that from Henderson.
From the 220-pound guy to only be like 0.05 of a second slower than Travion was.
Right. I think that was a surprise to a lot of people, and I agree with you. There are definitely instances in which guys can kind of improve their stock. I actually, looking at some of these mock drafts, people were already pretty high on Judkins, but I think that kind of maybe solidified it for a lot of people that he does have, the quote-unquote NFL speed. But both of those dudes are, they've got so many different skills that they can leverage in the league. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But you're right. I mean, especially for like these skill positions, the running backs, the wide receivers, etc. If you can have that measurable, I think it does a service to you in the eyes of these scouts and these, owners and coaches and whatnot, when they can point to this number and say, look what this guy did. However, you also mentioned the downside, and I think that's another interesting aspect of this, because Tez Johnson, right, a guy who a lot of people were like pretty high on and said, okay, this is a guy who's going to come out. First of all, he talked some smack against Ohio State, said that Oregon was better for them skill to skill. He weighs in at 154 pounds, which... I think I weighed that much in 6th grade, 7th grade.
When was the last time Jeremiah Smith weighed 150 pounds? That's what I want to
know. Which is wild to me. And then I think he ran like a 4.5 something. He was not having a good combine. So, the arrogance and the really light weight and then coming in slow at that weight, that's going to hurt that dude significantly. He probably cost himself maybe millions of dollars by having a poor NFL combine performance. So that's what I find really interesting about all this, because, there's a lot of guys who, if they said, screw it, I'm going to show up, I'll do the interviews, and then I'll do my pro day. Well, I don't know. I would even argue most athletes, that's the smart move. That's the way to do it. Whatever measurables you want to put out there, have it be done in the most friendly confines and favorable conditions possible. Don't go to this, meat market in Indianapolis and say, all right, well, now we gotta, put on a show. Like that's for guys who I think need to do that, as opposed to a person like, I don't know. I mean, you talk about any of the wide receivers Ohio State. I know they did themselves a service, but is Marvin Harrison Jr. needing to go there and show everybody what's what? No, I don't think he needed to do that. Jeremiah Smith, when he eventually does it, will not need to show everybody how fast he is. I don't think that's going to be something that he has to prove to anybody.
Well, the detractors will end up using the one counterpoint to that is detractors will use that against you as a what are they hiding?
Well, sure, yeah.
Thing that they don't want the joke, which is what was used.
And there's always that
slander Marvin Harrison Jr. last year for those that wanted to see Malik Neighbors drafted.
That's right.
Now, you could make an argument. I mean, Neighbors, I think, without a doubt, had a better rookie season than Harrison did. Did he deserve to go above Harrison? It remains to be seen. There's still a lot of time left in their NFL careers. Marv had basically an identical rookie season to the one that his father had. And frankly, even though the Giants certainly didn't have a great quarterback situation themselves, I mean, there was no doubt about who the guy in Arizona was, and frankly, it was an Oompa Loompa throwing the ball to Marv.
Yeah.
But Neighbors also got to be the guy in New York to the point that they unretired number one so that he could wear, which is not something you hear about any sports franchise doing, frankly, is unretiring a number after they've retired it for a player that hasn't earned any opportunity. Well, I shouldn't say earned, but hasn't really demonstrated any return on investment coming into the league at that point yet. That's how much they believed in him as a playmaker to make him their guy. You wonder if that same kind of target share had been allotted to Marv, what he could have done. Mm-hmm. Instead, he basically played second fiddle to Trey McBride all year in Arizona. So, but the people, my point with that is the people that were all saying that Marv should have done the combine and was hiding something and are now claiming that he was fraudulent because of the rookie season he had, which wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, I thought he had a fine. His rookie season was fine. It wasn't great.
But we expect every rookie now to be Jamar Chase. And Jefferson
get 1,200 yards,
1,000-yard seasons. Yeah. Exactly. So because he didn't live up to that standard, he's a bust. He's been fraud checked by the league, And it's all because he didn't run the combine last year.
Well, there you go. And, just like CJ Stroud before him, he's uncoachable, dumb, all this other stuff. Like, that's that's the really wild part about all of this. It's like, okay, we've got the combine out of the way. We'll do the pro days. And then the narratives start for a month. And then we get to listen about how terrible all these guys are. I feel a little bit bad.
You dare skip the Wonderlic test. It's one thing to skip the combine, but God forbid you skip the Wonder.
First of all, I forget what they're doing now. I forget what the name of the intelligence assessment or whatever. BS
now they do. They've brought back the Fitness Gram Pacer test. That's what it is.
There you go.
I'm kidding.
I know. That's a whole other topic that just drives me insane. But regardless, I do think it's going to be interesting, some of the narratives that come out after this with guys like Will Howard, who did not have a great combine performance. I thought it was interesting.
He's going to ace the Wonderlic, and it's all going to bounce
that's
back
right.
After that.
They'll use all the the white quarterback congratulatory terms to.
He plays the game the right way.
That's right. He's a real gamer. A lot of moxie.
High football IQ.
That's right. That's right. Real locker room guy.
Warrior.
That's right. I thought it was interesting. Shedeur Sanders had his back in the at the combine. Good for him. That's cool. Howard. I don't think anyone expects him to come in and be a starting NFL quarterback, and because of that, I honestly think that I don't know that a poor combine performance really hurts him in the way that it might have hurted a guy, that a guy that people expect to go in the first or second round or something like that.
What's funny? The last quarterback to win a national championship before Will Howard also had an absolutely terrible combine performance because he didn't have any chemistry with the receivers he was throwing to.
Yeah.
And that guy still went in the top 10 of the draft.
Right.
Even though he didn't play at all his rookie year because he got hurt. But
yeah. But
point
still,
is, if it didn't hurt Pretty Boy McCarthy, why should it hurt William Howard, who was actually one of the main reasons that team won the national championship?
Well, yeah, exactly.
JJ being a glorified game manager for a rigged Michigan offense.
Also, it'll be interesting to see how the offensive linemen grade out, particularly because of the injuries that these guys were dealing with.
It seemed like Simmons got a lot of really good press today.
Oh yeah, people were loving. I saw probably 3 or 4 articles about the guy where they were just like, "Oh yeah, you gotta draft this dude. He's gonna be great. He's gonna be great." And then with Jackson,
Justin Fry's biggest cheerleader too.
Well, of course. And then with Jackson, I thought was really interesting too because the commentary I was seeing is still mostly centered on him being a guard, but I don't know. I mean, at least it's something to put on the resume given how incredibly well he performed at tackle during the college football playoff. And I know that the way these teams operate is they're like, well, we're not going to take that on faith. We're not putting a guy at left tackle, right? Just because.
No, but you know what? He'll get drafted to a team that wants him to play guard, and then the NFL season will play out the way it always does, where their tackle will get hurt, and he'll inevitably have to move over there at some point.
There you go.
That's part of the reason these Ohio State players are consistently drafted is because they can play multiple positions along the offensive line, and you need that in a league where guys get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and again, it doesn't hurt his resume that he performed as well as he did against the teams that he did. Right? It's not like he just came out and like beat the crap out of Northwestern and they weren't able to touch Will Howard because he was kicking the crap out of Purdue or whoever.
I do think he had a much better impact as a tackle than he did as a guard relative to the second half of the season than the first half. So I do think that's something worth pointing out relative to what his trajectory would be as an interior lineman.
Yeah, and I think part of that, too, was maybe the style of offense Ohio State was running and what they were asking their offensive line to do. But in general, I mean, it's just obvious that he's a really, really, really good player, and I expect him to get drafted pretty high. What I'll ask you just ultimately, and maybe we'll revisit this, I guess, but how many Ohio State players do you think will be taken in the first round?
That's tough to say off the top of my head.
The offensive linemen are the guys who I think you're going to be looking at as, the most solid contenders for where they're going to be going. And what I mean by that is that there's the least amount of movement with those guys. I don't think anybody's like projecting them super high or super low or anything like that. I think guys like Donovan Jackson, Josh Simmons, Seth McLaughlin, they pretty much are going to, go where they're going to go. I don't think anybody's going to move them around too much. A person like Emeka, for example, I think might be a really interesting kind of X factor in this. People may look at him and his production and say, okay, Ohio State wide receiver. Do we take this guy at the back end of the first round? Quinshon Judkins, like you just said, helped himself out a lot. Travion Henderson, same deal. I think what you're going to see is you'll see a guy like Simmons and Jackson get taken kind of the middle part of the first round, or McLaughlin or whoever, and then you might see a skill position guy at the end of the first round. I personally think 3 with 2 Ohio State offensive linemen in the middle and then one of the skill players towards the end. That would be my
I'm sorry,
guess.
You said you thought McLaughlin is going to go in the first round?
No, I just mean he's projected as like, he's not gonna go anywhere else. He's gonna be like, I think he's like second, third, something like that.
Among centers?
Yeah, maybe.
I only bring that up just because
dude won the Remington. I mean,
no, I understand that, but it is exceedingly rare to see a center go in the first round at all, which is why I was just
I don't think he'll go in the first round, but I think he's a solid second or third round projection.
I think that's reasonable. So my understanding, just kind of before I actually look at a list of everybody as I am right now, is the 2 guys that have been assumed to be first round picks are Igbuka and Simmons. And after that, it gets a little bit gray. I know Tyleik Williams has been mentioned a lot as kind of back of the first round, like after pick 20 or something. So I think that's pretty reasonable. After that, it gets a little murky. I want to believe that Travion Henderson goes in the first round. Especially given he was projected to be a third-round pick last year. The fact that he, came back, got his NIL money, got a national championship, really solidified his legacy at Ohio State. And if he were to leave school and, have improved his draft stock that much while making that decision, I think would set a really good precedent for players taking that extra year when they otherwise could have left early in this era of NIL. It would reflect really well on Ohio State. The reality is we know that NFL decision makers just don't value running backs as highly as they used to. If you're not a Saquon Barkley type talent,
right,
it's going to be hard for them to just, if you're not worth taking within the first 5 or 10 picks, it's going to be hard for them to justify taking you as a running back further back in the draft than within the first 5 or 10 picks at this point.
Right.
So I have to imagine because of that, Henderson is going to fall to somewhere in the second round, but I do think that he deserves to be a first round pick. It would be unfortunate for him to not be there. I think he would be a great fit for the Chiefs. I don't know if they have a first round pick, but he'd be a very nice, dangerous weapon for them, particularly with
Can I ask you this real quick? Because we haven't talked about these two. What do you think about Sawyer and Tuimoloau? Like, what's going to happen with those guys?
I think, another guy that apparently didn't seem to have a great combine was Sawyer.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
I think he probably might have hurt his stock a little bit. And the reality is, even though he had a very strong end to his Ohio State career, he was somebody that we could kind of tell was a tweener of sorts relative to being, this pass rushing edge linebacker or a defensive end. So I expect him to kind of, if not have those struggles in the NFL, I would think that a lot of people that are thinking about using a high draft pick on him are probably looking at him and seeing a similar concern that they're like, yeah, he did finish his career strong, but they're probably taking a look at him along with Tui Molowau and wondering, why weren't these guys more consistent prior to this year?
Right.
So I think that is probably.
And what kind of defensive system do they have to play in to be successful? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're not this overwhelming athletic presence that can just slot in anywhere and then be dominant.
Why weren't these guys on the level of Chase Young and the Bosas?
Right,
when
exactly.
They were billed as
and that's
such
the
coming
inevitable
out of high
comparison
school.
that'll be made.
Right. So I don't see either of them going in the first round. So
Yeah,
I would think the best case for Ohio State is I wanted to believe that, Will Howard had a ton of hype. Coming out of the national championship, but it seemed like this combine kind of dumped a bit of a bucket of cold water in terms of what his performance could be. My greatest hope is still that, just for the sake of saying cementing Ryan Day as the best quarterback whisperer in college football, that Howard and McCord somehow both go ahead of Quinn Ewers. That would be incredible.
I love that you're carrying on that grudge. That's
for a guy
so good.
that was billed as the next Patrick Mahomes coming out of high school, for both Howard and McCord to leapfrog that guy in the NFL draft would be an incredible, because it would.
I don't think Howard will, but I think McCord will.
Right.
Yeah.
Howard could.
He could.
For some reason, I would think Howard has a better shot based on how the season ended than McCord did. But I know McCord had a pretty solid.
He had a great combine. He was legit.
So there's a lot of skepticism about Ewers, to the point that a lot of people thought he was even going to come back to college for another year after this. So I don't necessarily think it's crazy that a team that believes in Will Howard takes him earlier than perhaps a lot of other teams that are interested in him would, if they believe in him as like a future NFL starter instead of just a career backup, the way a lot of people seem to have tabbed him at this point. So I don't think it's out of the question, and it would be great in the sense that, like, if you're a premier talent at the position and you're thinking about doing what Quinn Ewers did, and you see how that decision played out to not play under Ryan Day, whereas these two guys that at least got one season under him did, and then you see where they ended up going in the draft and how that positioned their NFL careers, I think you would have to really think hard about bailing on Ohio State as a program for another opportunity.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Based on how that played out, even for a guy like McCord. So it would be a great feather in the cap of Ryan Day, and
also funny. That's really the.
And that's. It's all about the bit.
Exactly,
at least
it's all
as
about
it applies to the two of us. So anyway, to answer your original question, Simmons, Egbuka, I think I'm pretty confident saying those two are going to go in the first round. Tyleek, I feel reasonably confident he goes in the back third of the first round.
Okay.
I think Donovan Jackson will probably end up sliding in there, just because high caliber offensive linemen are always in demand, regardless of what their assumed draft position.
I think Jackson's getting in. I think
that he'll get in there. Yeah. And I want to believe Travion does, but I just don't see it happening. So right now, I'm tentatively going to say that they'll get 4 picks in the first round for the NFL draft. But I know that they're at least looking to, for overall picks, try to tie the number that Michigan had last year, which I think was it 14?
I thought it was 15.
15, somewhere in that range. So that's really what I'm more curious about seeing if that happens rather than how many they get in the first round.
That's going to be a tall order, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, I would love to see those guys go in the first round. I think Donovan Jackson's. I really think he's going to get in it. And then Simmons is pretty much a lock. Emeka, I mean, I think he'll get in too. I'm curious who he's going to go to. You know what I mean? Like,
if by nothing else, of birthright of being,
that's right,
an Ohio State receiver.
That's right. He's an Ohio State receiver in the NFL draft. So there you go. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep talking about it. Real quick before we get to Ask Us Anything, we have to talk about men's basketball, of course, our favorite sport that we love to follow and talk about. Look, they beat USC. They split the West Coast trip. They almost blew a lead. I think it was like a
survived USC.
Yeah, I think they had like a 17-point lead that they almost choked, but they hung on. They won. They're at 16, I think like 16 and 13, 16, 12, something like that. I know they're sitting at 16 wins. Lenardi has them in right now. I don't know how exactly, because it really seemed like that was just kind of gone by the wayside.
I can't remember if it was like a day before or a day after the USC game, but he had them as one of the first four out prior to that. So it's like, did that USC performance where they blew a 17-point lead and let USC come back to tie the game, did that really
that convince the committee? They're like, these guys got grit.
In? I mean, I think that we even going back to when we were, 2 weeks before we started anointing ourselves as clairvoyant for how things played out. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason that we did that is because we were taking a much longer term look at how many of these games down the stretch are they going to win or lose. And we already kind of started preemptively writing off some as wins and losses. Certainly not Northwestern, but UCLA was one that we didn't realistically think they were going to win. Mm-hmm. We thought Nebraska, which is going to be their next game, which they're playing on the day this show comes out, Tuesday, as well as Indiana playing Oregon that same night, was going to be a pivotal pair of results prior to Ohio State playing Indiana itself in the last game of the season. So there's still two very, very key regular season games remaining. And then after that, too, I mean, I would have to think that Lenardi is assuming that Ohio State is going to get into the Big Ten tournament and have a strong showing, at least win one or two games where they are able to, like, really prove that they belong in order to make a case for them not only being one of the last four in, but being one of the last buys.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have – I mean – I don't know. Honestly, if you had asked me, a week ago if they were in or out, I'd be like, they're out. They're way out. But everybody's saying,
me too.
Yeah, but everybody's saying that they still have a shot. Look, if they beat Nebraska and Indiana,
because they don't want to live in a reality where we're right.
That's right. It's all despite the 11 Dubcast. That's exactly what they're doing. No, I mean, I think they have to beat Nebraska and Indiana. I don't think they have a choice. You have to beat those two teams, and then, I mean, at least show something in the Big Ten tournament. And that's
you
just
don't think they could lose to Nebraska? Assume if Indiana loses to Oregon, you don't think Ohio State could lose to Nebraska and then beat Indiana and still get in?
They'd have to do something in the Big Ten tournament. Like, I don't think they can just get in by the dint of saying, okay, well, we're better than a team that lost. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they're going to cut them that much slack. I think they would have to win something, do something in the Big Ten tournament to really justify that. But on the other hand, I don't know. It feels like these guys, these people who are projecting are giving them every break possible, which, again, I'm not complaining about. Fine, that's cool. If you want to put them in, put them in. I would love to see him in the tournament, and as we've said, I think that'd be a huge win for the team overall. But I think you gotta have these two wins in your pocket to close out the season. And that, again, it's going to be against two teams that are desperate, just as desperate as Ohio State is to close out the season in a strong fashion, because they're right in the same position, right? They're right on the bubble with Ohio State. So this is going to be a big test, and honestly, I mean, I know we talk about all these big games, and that Jake Diebler has been able to kind of pull out of his pocket against highly ranked opponents, but this is probably the most important 2-game stretch that Jake Diebler has had since taking over as Ohio State's head coach. Last season, whatever happened, with, the end of the season, which was great, I don't know that it had a huge impact on the program overall. This does. It
had a huge impact because it convinced
it got him high, right,
over Dusty.
Right. But for Jake Diebler specifically, aside from getting the job full time, that's a great point. But aside from getting the job full time, this is really going to be a big deal going into the offseason for all kinds of things. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
In terms of inspiring long-term confidence, I would agree.
Yeah, big deal. So we'll see how it goes, and of course we'll talk about it because they'll have them done by the time we record this next. So let's go ahead and do Ask Us Anything. But before we do that, I want to remind you that the Dubcast is sponsored by the Dry Goods Store at 11warriors.com. Shirts, hats, stickers, all kinds of great stuff. Check it out. Look. Well, this is First Ohio Battery, but it's great quality. So that's the kind of thing that you can expect at the Dry Goods Store at 11warriors.com, drygoods.11warriors.com.
All the hockey hipsters in Columbus are having their moment.
That's right. Well, we all love hockey now. All the people who were not talking about
Who's we?
Me. I love hockey. I went to a hockey game this year.
I didn't even know Four Nations was happening until you told me about it.
That's all right. They lost to Canada in the finals.
They won the game with the fights, and that is much more important.
That's right. I really thought they were going to be throwing hands at the stadium classic here, but didn't end up happening. All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and do Ask Us Anything. Reminder that you can ask us anything by sending us questions to dubcast@11warriors.com. Let's start off here with Kevin, who says, guys, who do you think will win the men's basketball tournament and the women's basketball tournament?
What, the Big Ten tournament? Or
No, NCAAs.
I'm going to be so lame and just say Duke.
Why?
Because Cooper Flag is good.
All right. I mean, that's fair, I guess.
I don't want to say Auburn. I hope
that's what I was going to say.
Auburn wins.
I was going to say Auburn.
I hope any team but Auburn wins.
I mean, I don't disagree.
It is ridiculous that their average age is like within a year of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I know.
It's absolutely absurd.
That's probably the funniest part about it because it really does.
And not only that, but Bruce Pearl is their head coach, right? And we still have that listener that wrote in a couple weeks ago and said it wouldn't have been great if he was Ohio State's head coach. It's like, if Auburn does well, then that listener is correct. And
and you don't want that to be the case.
It.
I honestly think they're gonna do it. I think they'll pull it off. They have looked the most consistently impressive team throughout the college basketball season. They play an incredibly difficult conference, and they're still just kicking butt. I mean, I don't know, man. I think they're gonna do it. So. And it's got, and it feels like every third year, the NCAA tournament, like March Madness, just goes straight chalk, right? Like like for the most part, it's crazy and fun and there's upsets and whatever. And then like every third year, it feels like there's nothing. It's just like one beats 16 and then all the way down the line, straight chalk. And I kind of feel like that's how it's going to play out this year.
Well, I mean, to your point, I picked Duke, so it's not like
right. Yeah, you're really going on a limb. And I'm going to say for the women's, I haven't been paying as close attention. I know Texas is really good this year. I know UCLA is really good. I'll say, I don't know. I'll just, I'll go with UCLA because I actually have paid. Like I've seen some of their games that look really good. I know they're playing well. I think they only have like one loss this year, so I'll go the Bruins.
It will be one of the USCs.
There you go. No, I mean that's
a nice
not a bad
hedge, right?
No, well, yeah, but that's not. I mean, shoot, they're both really good teams. USC, obviously, the South Carolina one. I mean, they've had a really good
the
run of
defending
success.
champs,
yeah,
or the one with the best player in the sport.
Well,
it's not a bad way to hedge.
No, although I mean, best player in the sport last season did not end up, getting to the mountaintop. So interesting how that works sometimes. This one is from Paul. This next question is from Paul. Johnny, did the National Park poster make the move?
I knew somebody was going to ask about it. I told you last week before the show, you're going to take it down, and somebody is going to throw a fit about it.
First
Somebody's
of all,
going to ask you about it. You're going to draw the ire, and look what has happened.
I know.
It is now sabotaged. Ask us anything.
I'm sorry. Look, we're not moving. We're not moving yet. We're just we're in preparation of a possible move. I just want people to understand that. So
Clairvoyant George strikes again.
It'll make a reappearance. I promise. It'll make a reappearance here soon. We're just moving some things around. Don't panic. There will be old-timey pictures of national park advertisements behind me soon next week. Don't worry, okay? Just calm down.
To be fair, I said people were going to miss the poster of Italy more than the national park poster.
Which I got in Italy, by the way. So that's how you know it's authentic. Maybe I'll put this up. So I had a student a few years ago who is from Nepal, and she went back to Nepal over Christmas break and got me they have all of these in Kathmandu, in the capital, they have people who like paint, and then they just sell you like paintings and stuff, for real cheap. And so she got me one, and I have a frame to that. So maybe I'll put that up because it's pretty sick.
I
have
all right. Some pink Himalayan salt in my spice rack.
Right.
That's about all I have from Nepal.
There you go. You have one of those light up. Is it light up thing?
Do you think they actually source that from Nepal? Or
no,
it's gotta be such a scam.
No,
right?
Himalayan's probably like some trademark thing, and it's from like some dude's basement in New Jersey.
Yeah, I got it in California because I remember just thinking like, this is 100%. Like, there's no way that they're actually sourcing this.
But maybe they do. I don't know. If anyone here is a Himalayan salt expert, they can let us know.
Pink Himalayan salt.
Oh yeah, specifically pink Himalayan salt.
Yes.
This is from Jen. Hi, guys. Hope all is well. Would have written in sooner, but had nothing interesting to say. I don't believe that, Jen. I think you always have something interesting to say. For this week's Ask Us Anything.
Jen, you ask us the best off-topic questions, and we need those in spades during the off-season. So
I agree.
Never be shy.
I agree, and I like this one quite a bit as well. So for this week's Ask Us Anything, let's talk slang. What's a current term, slang term or phrase that you absolutely cannot stand and would like to see disappear? And also, what's your most frequently used slang term or phrase? And then what's one that you would like to see make a comeback? She hates "This Is the Way," like from The Mandalorian. Yeah, I also hate that. She says that she uses "dude" and "right on" like 25 times a day. I also do that. I say "dude" and "right on" a ton.
I think most people do.
Yeah, and she would like to see "rad" or "boss" come back into fashion.
I feel like people still say "boss."
I like "rad." I'm that would be my answer for the one that makes a comeback. I think "rad's" really good. I like "rad" a lot. I would like to see that one make a comeback. Honestly, I work with children and teens a lot. So there's a lot of slang that I just wish would just kind of be sucked.
This is a good question for this show specifically, and you might be able to shed some light on it.
Yeah.
Why Ohio has become a slang derogatory term among the youth. Why is that?
Because it's ironic. So the idea is that Ohio is this, it's nothing, right? Like it's this bland thing that you don't think about. So the fact that you're using it as some kind of pejorative is the joke, right? It's like saying, "Oh man, that thing's totally toast." You know what I mean? Like it's the idea that you're taking something.
So they use it like that's so Ohio. Like, is that how it is said?
Yeah. Well, it's the idea that it's the ironic idea that Ohio is super weird and goofy and strange when we all know that it's not. Like that's the whole point.
I just feel like there's way better examples of states that serve that purpose.
Oh yeah, of course.
Ohio does,
yeah, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska. Yeah, there's a lot of states that are much more. But for whatever reason, Ohio's the one that stunk. I think that it's a result of that Ohio meme where it was like they get to the moon and it's the two astronauts and it's like, wait, it's all Ohio? It's like always has been. And I think that meme took off and so people started using it.
There's a From Software meme of one of those like Elden Ring characters entering like a doomy like cornfield or whatever, and the text appears on the screen and it just says Ohio.
That's really funny. I'll have to check that one out. I really hate anything related to like the skibbity toilet stuff. Honestly, it's the dumbest. Like I know there's a lot of. I know every generation has dumb slang. I know every group age cohort has dumb slang. That's among the dumbest that I've ever heard. And I say this as someone who's been a professional educator since the mid 2000s, so like going on 20 years now. That's pretty terrible and stupid and dumb, and I need it to go away. I hate hearing it. Which if I ever told kids that I work with, they would of course say it ad nauseum forever. So I can't tell them that. I just kind of have to wish that it goes away. It's not even one of those things that you can say and they'll like think it's lame because you're saying it. They'll just laugh and be like, okay, and then we're going to do it 20 more times. So that one sucks. I really hate that one a lot. My most frequently used one is probably dude or I don't know. Yeah, I say right on a lot too. I've noticed. I try to like avoid doing it because I feel like the older I get, the more awkward it is that I say it, but I say it a lot. So
late last year, there was a great picture that went viral on X, formerly known as Twitter, that was a picture of a teacher's classroom, and she had like 24 banned words.
That's right.
On here, which is what originally brought to my attention.
Right.
That Ohio is, now used in a derogatory sense. Ohio was number 3 on this list. So I was like, not only am I shocked that that's even on the list, I'm shocked that it's that high. I'm like, number 1 was skibbity. Yeah, so I can understand that. I didn't mind it at first. I thought this is kind of weird that of all the things that could be, first of all, it's like, I can't believe that in, we're in the 2020s decade and we've got a Gary's Mod meme going viral among Gen Z. Like that's a total clash of generational.
Gen Z loves their Roblox. They love their Minecraft. They like
Roblox and Minecraft are one thing, but Gary's Mod is like mid 2000s.
Oh, I know.
Internet humor. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it did shine, and I'm surprised that it kind of had the staying power that it did, just because it was like, I don't understand why this is taking a hold of the youth, and it just seems like it's become kind of an ironic thing now. I don't really know, but in any event, Sigma Beta Alpha was number 2.
That's really stupid.
Those are all not great. Riz is number 4.
Riz is dumb.
I love using that term ironically.
The thing about Riz,
love using it.
The thing about Riz, it's really dumb and it's bad. But I gotta say, the way that some of the kids use it, because they know how stupid it is, they kind of use it in an ironic way sometimes. That just I can't not laugh at it. I think it's really funny sometimes. I have a coworker who has a son who's like, I think he's like 12, like 11 or 12. So he's like prime, ridiculous slang demographic. And he was talking about how she was telling me how I guess he had a sleepover or something, and these kids just found like a bunch of weird like sunglasses and just ran around saying like, I'm the Rizzler, and just like ran around and like that. That's prime preteen boy stuff, and it's really hard for me to get too upset about it because it's just so stupid and ridiculous. So I'm fine with that. It's dumb.
The Rizzler specifically is like a spin-off of like this other Costco guy's meme. I'm not sure if you're
I was not aware of that. Okay.
Yeah, well, the Rizzler is like this 6-year-old chubby child that does like he does an expression like this.
Oh yeah. By the way, the mewing thing, like
no, that's what he does. Is he mews and he like rubs his chin, and he's
I gotcha.
Yeah, he's
the Rizzler.
A pudgy child, so it's funny. But yeah,
by the way,
call him the Rizzler.
I really wonder what our general audience listener here is thinking of this entire conversation. Go ahead and look up mewing.
This is off-season gold.
That's right.
Here. Let me tell you. So again, Jen, you thought you didn't have anything interesting to write in? This is brilliant. Like this is exactly what I want to talk about. Anyway, Gat was number 5. That's another one. I love that term.
So ridiculous.
Gat. That's
so
a great
ridiculous.
One. Oh, I love it.
Honestly. That kind of reminds me of the kind of stuff people would say when I was a teenager. Like that feels like a throwback, honestly. What one that I wish would come back is salty. I really liked when people will like call each other salty when they got angry.
Oh yeah. I use that one a lot in college. Just saying like, oh, that person's so salt. Like,
yeah, I love that.
That's a great one.
Because everybody instantly understood that feeling. Like they're just getting mad and they can't show it, but they can't help themselves. I mean, it was great. I loved it.
So fine, like FEIN was number 6. Have you heard of that in the classroom? No, you should please ask your students what that one means and report back.
I'll ask the kids at the library. Yeah, I'll see.
One of my favorite ones on here, number 7 was tweaking, but the reason it's one of my favorites is because in parentheses it says Emma only. So one girl in the class was saying tweaking
she just won't
too
stop.
much to the point that they had to add it on there for her sake.
They're saying I've heard I'm about to crash out a lot recently. I'm okay with that one. I think that one's fine because it's one of those. The thing I am okay with certain slang terms is that it's universally understood, even if you've never heard it before. And when some kid says I'm about to crash out, like I think everybody kind of understands what that kid's referring to. So I think that's a good bit of slang. I enjoy that. I appreciate that. I
don't mind that one either.
Yeah.
Number 8 was any lyrics to the song Thick of It, which is, I believe, a song that was by KSI. I don't know if you're familiar with either of those things.
I'm not.
I've never actually heard the song. I just know that offhand.
Cool.
The cardiac arrest meme is number 9, so I guess kids must have been pretending to have heart attacks or something, which
call it
I think this is mine for one that I hate. There's a couple on here, and I do want to get through this whole list.
How many more do we have?
This is number 10, and there's 2 dozen. So we're
Jesus Christ, we're not going to do all of these. Do 3 more.
Maybe not. Okay.
Do 3 more.
Number 10, and I hate this one, especially because of the way that it gets used in real life, is chat.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I
don't like that
hate
either.
This.
Yeah, Discord slang is the worst. I can't stand
it. It is
that
the
crap.
most it is the most zoomer-brained thing.
Yeah.
I hate referring to a group of people as chat, and it's one thing when it happens on the internet, but when people in real life use it, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Like, it bothers me so much. I absolutely hate that one.
Agreed. There's when we start blurring the line between how we live online and we live in person. I hate that crap. It sucks. Give me 2 more. Give me 2 more, and then we got to.
Well, I have to use this one. I don't want it, or I have to say this one. I don't want it to count as one of the last 3. Okay. All combos of Tua and Hawk, which is a close second to me for chat.
Sure. Also bad.
That's up there.
All right.
There's actually not 2 dozen more. I don't know. There's like 5 missing from this list apparently, which is crazy. Oh wait, no, there isn't. Okay, never mind. Anyway,
2 more.
One of them is Diddy, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
Like people recently really started using that one a lot.
Yeah.
16. I love this word.
Okay, last one. What is it?
It's overused, but I love it. Goon. I love it. And it means a totally different thing now than it did back in the day, but it's just such a great word.
Yeah.
I love goonin. I love
that one's weird to me. Used. I'll be honest, that one I'm not a huge fan of that one. Well, I'll give you a bonus one that I really hate, which is gives me the ick. Whenever somebody says something like this gives me the ick, I want to just punch my fist through a wall.
Yeah, that so one's much. Not great.
It's pretty bad. Any infantile kind of slang, just really like when people say like doggo or pup, I'm just like, please, for the love of God, stop.
Okay, there's one other on here I need you to ask your kids about and report back on.
Last one,
Huzz.
I don't know what that is.
Huzz.
All right, I'll ask.
So I need you to ask your kids about fine FEIN and Huzz.
Okay.
Huzz.
I'll do that. That'll be my assignment.
Thanks.
One last thing before I will say this. I found an interesting local discrepancy in some slang. You know how when you get ahead of somebody in the line, I always called that cutting in line, right? Is that what you called it when you were a kid? Like if somebody got in front of you in line, okay, cutting in line.
Yeah, butting in line, cutting in line.
Butting in line, cutting in line. Yeah, right. In Columbus, I'm not really sure why, and maybe it's in other places too, but for whatever reason, it just seems like it's in Columbus. Ditching is the word that they use for this, which doesn't make any sense to me.
No,
because that's like the
ditching
opposite.
is leaving a place.
That's what I always assume.
Yourself into something.
But for many
makes no
years,
sense.
I heard kids say, "Hey, don't ditch me. I'm, this kid's trying to ditch me in line. He's ditching." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, he's trying to get ahead of me." And I'm like, "What?"
I will leave you in a ditch if you ditch in that context.
All right. Well, let's.
What the hell are you saying to me?
Let's get out of here with a few other quick hitters. Stadium Series happened at Ohio State, and I think I'll get into the fun stuff that I like, but I do think it's funny that an article came out, I think, at The Athletic today, talking about all the stipulations Ohio State put on this. Like, you can't say the Stadium Series, although I guess they relented on that, but they didn't want them to say Skull Session for their pregame pep rally at St. John Arena.
It doesn't make any. It's like it's free marketing
You're
for you guys.
You're in
like,
the shoe.
Take it seriously.
You're in the shoe. Look, Ohio State is nothing if not overzealous in their defense of their trademarks and copyrights, but like, come on, guys, you gotta relax a little bit. Now, as for the actual event itself, awesome. Super freaking awesome. I wish it could have been there. There were like, I think 94,000 people in attendance, which is unbelievable. The Gaudreaus were featured, which is great. They did Script Ohio on the ice. You had two mediocre to bad bands playing, which, people seem to get pretty hyped for. Production wise, I think it was fantastic. The actual ice itself looked great. All the stuff around it was incredible. They had the cannon, which went off. I think everything about it was sick. The uniforms, everything. Obviously, it was great because the Blue Jackets won. They screwed over Detroit. And by they, I mean the referees screwed over Detroit at the end. Good. Dylan Larkin, Detroit's probably best player. He's from Michigan. He said the shoe sucked. It was the worst place he's ever played, which, okay, well, stay salty, I guess. But, hey.
It's not a great place to play relative to the best. It isn't,
but you know what?
Detroit in college football.
Look, Detroit and Columbus are fighting for a playoff spot, a wild card spot, and Detroit just lost 2 in a row to the CBJ, so deal with it. All right, Larkin, maybe you guys should win and you'll feel a little bit better about the experience. So I thought it was great. I saw a lot of hockey people complaining about the broadcast, which kind of makes sense because they had like Kirk Herbstreit. Literally, like, I'm not even messing with you, dude. They had Kirk Herbstreit on with his dog. And at a certain point, you're like, what are we doing here? Come on. And cool thing was they did feature Ohio State's football team, actual football team. Guys who were Sonny Styles and company were there. That was a lot of fun. But overall, I thought it was a really cool experience. I'm glad that they finally got to, host that and get it all figured out. So that was
as
cool.
Someone who spent their high school and years and summers in college watching the Blackhawks dynasty, I'm glad that you guys got a little taste of what it's like to have a successful hockey team.
Yeah, well, okay, first of all, I don't know how successful they actually are. Secondly, I do think it's good. Honestly, in all seriousness, I do think this is really good for hockey in Columbus. This has become a much more vociferous, I guess, hockey town in the past 10 years. And you can see that in the number of ice rinks, the number of people involved in youth hockey. And I think this is just going to grow the game. So I'm really excited about it. I think it was awesome that they hosted it at the Shoe. Obviously, people came out, to support it and just check it out. I mean, 94,000 is an unbelievable number. I think it's the second largest hockey crowd of all time. So that's great. So I think it went off really, really, really well. A couple of the random things here that I want to address before we get out of here. Sammy Sasso, unfortunately, is going to retire from wrestling. If you remember, he had a gunshot wound that he suffered in the summer of 23, came back to wrestle, and he's kind of hanging him up. And, a lot of things just kind of, leading to that in terms of his recovery and whatnot. But honestly, hats off to him. Incredible career. It's really great to see that he was able to come back. He
came back and he had a winning record.
He did, 12 and 7.
That he was even able to achieve that after
pretty incredible.
Suffering that kind of injury is nothing short of remarkable and should be pretty inspirational to anybody that is
absolutely
close to the sport. So it's a shame that he was robbed of doing even potentially greater things by that tragedy, but he didn't let it totally compromise something that he loved. So it's admirable that he even was able to come back from something like that. And it's a shame, but we, nothing but the best to Sammy Sasso.
Yeah, hats off to that dude. Hard Knocks couldn't find an NFL team to to hang around, so they're going to go to North Carolina and hang around Bill Belichick instead. I think this is incredibly funny and the best possible outcome because
seems like a jumping the shark moment for Hard Knocks, quite frankly.
A little bit, but I have never been one to really pay that close attention to Hard Knocks. Like I'll watch an episode or two every now and then, but I'm watching this because this is going to be either incredible, like from a like a learning standpoint, or incredibly bad and a train wreck.
The only season I ever watched was the one with the Raiders that featured Antonio Brown like melting down before our eyes, and I remember thinking like it's literally never going to be better than this.
Yeah, well, yes, that was probably the best incarnation of Hard Knocks. I agree. Last thing I got to say, we haven't been talking about them as much, and I really feel bad that I have not kept up on this, but women's hockey, y'all. All right, they're still kicking butt. They beat the crap out of St. Thomas 2 games in a row. It was a aggregate of 9-2, and they're going into the final face-off semifinal. This is the WCHA tournament. They're in the semis now. They're rolling up to Duluth, Minnesota to try to close this thing out, and that's where they'll do the semis and the finals. So that is this weekend. Saturday and I think Sunday is when they'll be doing it. So keep an eye on that as they continue their quest to defend their title and get me to buy another shirt. And look, if they do, let me put it this way. If they get to the championship, I'm not even saying they got to win the whole thing. If they get to the championship, I'm going to buy like a Joy Dunn or somebody. I'm going to get one from the team. I want to like contribute to their pockets. I'm not going to just buy one from, some affiliate site or something like that. So I'll try to make sure that the players getting compensated.
They're going to be a dynasty if they win this one.
Yeah.
Right? This will be 3 within 5 years, I think, at least, right?
I think 3 and 4 years.
3 and 4 years.
Yeah.
That's
a dynasty. That's a dynasty. So yeah, hell yeah, I'm all in, and I'm excited to see what they do here in the WCHA and the Frozen Four. So I think it'll be really cool to check out. So we'll talk about all that stuff, and of course the NFL draft and all the other things happening with Ohio State men's basketball. And we'll be back next week to break it down. So until then, I'm Johnny.
I'm George.
And we'll see you next time.
Take care, folks.